Have you thought more about what we discussed last weekend?
Yeah. Let me see if I understand what you're saying.
Go ahead.
So factory farming inflicts extreme pain and suffering on 74 billion animals a year before killing them. Peter Singer thinks that animal suffering is just as important as human suffering. If he's right, then factory farming is like an institution that tortures 74 billion people a year. If there's even a 1% chance that he's right, then it's like an institution that tortures 740 million people a year. Or if animal suffering is even 1% as important as human suffering, then again, factory farming is like an institution that tortures 740 million people a year.
Right. And if there's only a 1% chance that animal suffering is 1% as important as human suffering, then it's only comparable to a practice that tortures 7.4 million people a year, which would still be horrific. And since there aren't even any good arguments that animal interests matter drastically less than human interests, it's hard to claim that there's not even a 1% chance that animal interests are even 1% as important as human interests.
My argument was that humans are smarter than animals and that pain matters much less for a less intelligent creature.
But you couldn't give any argument for this or any explanation of why this would be true, which makes it hard to claim certainly that you're right.
Okay, let's say factory farming is wrong.
So you agree that it should be abolished?
I guess so, but that doesn't mean that eating meat is wrong.
Why not?
Well, meat could be produced humanely, without all this cruelty. Therefore, in principle, there could be a meat industry that was morally okay, in which case it would be okay to eat the meat it produced.
But remember what the issue was. When I told you that I think meat eating is wrong, I explained that I mean that it is wrong in the conditions we normally actually find ourselves in. It doesn't matter if there is some hypothetical, possible world in which it would be okay.
Oh yeah, but just because factory farming is wrong doesn't mean that I'm wrong for buying meat.
You know that almost all meat is from factory farms, right?
Yeah, I know, but it's not my fault that they're so cruel and inhumane. It's not like I'm inflicting the pain and suffering on the animals directly. It's the workers on the farms. I don't see why I should be blamed for what they do.
Because you're paying them for what they do.
So what?
Usually, if it's wrong to do something, then it's also wrong to pay other people to do it. For instance, murder is wrong, so it's also wrong to hire an assassin. If you hire an assassin to kill someone, you can't say that you're not to blame just because you didn't pull the trigger yourself.
Yeah, but that's different. In that case, you're specifically telling the assassin to commit a murder. I'm not telling meat companies to torture animals, and they don't have to do that. They're just deciding to do it that way, on their own initiative.
Okay, different example. You have a friend named Killian, who happens to be a murderer. One day, you offer Killian $20,000 to get you a new car. Killian could carry out this task in a perfectly moral manner, but you know that the way he will, in fact, do it is by murdering some innocent person and stealing their car. You know this because Killian has performed tasks like this for you in the past. He always murders people along the way, and you always pay him for it afterward. You don't specifically tell him to murder anyone. You just know that's the way he does things. So you tell Killian to get a car. He goes off, kills someone, steals the car, gives it to you, and you pay him $20,000. End of story. Did you act morally in this story?
I don't like that story. I would never act that way.
Of course not, but let's understand why not.
Because I don't want to support murder or theft.
Glad to hear it. Moreover, it would be wrong to do so, wouldn't it?
It seems wrong.
Well, that's like buying factory-farmed meat. You didn't tell them to commit acts of extreme cruelty, but you know that this is how they do things, and you keep paying them for the product.
But in your story, when I asked Killian to get me a car, the murder and the theft hasn't yet occurred, and I'm going to cause it to occur. In the case of buying meat, the animal has already been tortured and killed.
True. If you like, we can change the example. Say Killian has a business. He murders people and steals their cars, then sells them. That's where all of his cars come from. You go to Killian to buy a car. You buy a car that has already been stolen and whose owner is already dead. Does this make it okay to buy cars from Killian?
I guess not, but I still think that's different from buying meat.
How is it different?
Well, Killian is a single person with a small business. So when you buy a car from Killian, that might cause him to go out and kill another person and steal their car to replenish his stock of cars.
Right, and when people buy meat, that might cause the meat companies to raise and slaughter more animals to replenish their stock.
But the meat industry is so large that I don't think it would. They're not going to respond to such a small chain giving up on meat.
Would they respond if 1 million people gave up meat?
Of course. Then they'd obviously have to reduce their production.
What if 1,000 people gave up meat? Would the industry reduce their production then?
Probably.
What would you guess is the minimum number of people that would cause the meat industry to reduce its production if they gave up meat?
I don't know.
Just take a guess for the sake of argument. It doesn't matter if your guess is wrong.
Fine. Maybe if 100 people gave up meat, then the industry would reduce its production. But I can't make 100 people do that.
Alright, now, if they reduce their production in response to 100 people giving up meat, then they'd reduce it by about the amount that 100 people eat, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But you and I are not the only ones who are thinking about ethical vegetarianism. Other people in our society periodically give up meat in response to ethical reasons. On our current hypothesis, every time 100 people give up meat, the industry reduces its production by the amount eaten by 100 people.
Okay.
Well, that means that you might trigger a reduction in production like that. If 99 other people have given up eating meat since the last time they reassessed their production, then you'll be the 100th. Then you'll push them over the 100-person threshold, causing them to reduce production by the amount that 100 people eat.
Yeah, but that seems really unlikely.
It is. It's only 1% likely. But if it happens, it'll reduce production by 100 times the amount that a single person eats, so it's worth it.
Okay, but this reasoning was just based on a guess that I made. I just guessed that it takes 100 people to cause the meat industry to respond.
True, but similar reasoning would apply no matter what guess you'd made. If you had guessed 86 instead of 100, then I would have said, there's a 1 in 86 probability that you'll cause the industry to respond, in which case they'll reduce production by the amount that 86 people eat. It's still worth it to give up meat.
I see. But you're still assuming that there was some correct answer, some specific number of vegetarians who would induce the meat industry to reduce production.
And that's not true?
I don't think so.
You mean that the industry won't reduce production no matter how many people give up meat?
No, I don't mean that. I mean that there might be no particular number at which it would happen.
If 1 million people gave up meat, one after the other, the industry would reduce production at some point, right?
Presumably.
Well, whenever it happened, it would be after some particular number of people. There's no way of reducing production just in general without doing it at any particular time.
Yeah, but maybe each time someone gives up meat, there's just a chance that they'll reduce production, but it's not determined in advance exactly when it will happen.
Maybe, but this still doesn't undermine my argument. As long as there's that chance that they'll reduce production, you have a reason to give up buying meat, since you could trigger a large reduction.
But maybe if a bunch of people give up meat, instead of reducing production, the meat industry will just lower prices so they can still sell all the meat they produce to the remaining meat eaters.
Well, you've brought up a real point from economics, but you've oversimplified it. In standard economic theory, when demand for a product declines, the producers lower the price and reduce production. So, if many people give up eating meat, then they'll lower the price and reduce production.
Okay, so with the lower price, other meat eaters will increase their meat eating, which will reduce the impact of my sacrifice. Before I go to all the trouble of converting to a vegetarian diet, I want to know how much it's going to impact the meat production.
It happens that agricultural economists have looked into this. They've done empirical studies of the market for meat in the US. They find that on average, if you reduce your meat purchases by 1 pound, producers will decrease their production by 0.68 pounds for beef, 0.76 pounds for chicken, and 0.74 pounds for pork.
Wait, you're saying the industry responds to every 1 pound change in demand? You mean a single pound per year?
No, they don't respond every time. I'm saying that's the average effect. And because it's an average, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a pound per day, a pound per year, or whatever.
Okay, but your argument was assuming that meat production is falling because of people becoming vegetarian. I've heard that overall meat consumption increases in most years. Not to cast any aspersions on your persuasiveness, but new meat eaters are entering the market faster than people are giving up meat.
True, but all the above arguments also apply in reverse.
What do you mean in reverse?
I mean, just as a decline in demand causes a drop in production, an increase in demand causes a rise in production. So according to the economists I was referring to, if you buy 1 more pound of meat, that'll cause the industry on average to increase their production by 0.68 pounds for beef, 0.76 pounds for chicken, or 0.74 pounds for pork. If meat production is on the rise, then by giving up meat, you reduce the rate at which it rises. If it's on the decline, then you increase the rate of decline.
Wait a minute. If the meat industry reduces its production, then farm animals won't be better off. There will just be fewer of them. It's better to have a low quality of life than not live at all. So we're doing future generations of animals a favour by eating animals today.
Would you accept this argument if it were applied to people? What if a particular race of people were bred solely to serve as slaves? Then you could say that those particular people would not have existed if not for the practice of slavery. Would this make slavery okay?
Of course not. But maybe that's because humans have more rights than animals do. Once a person exists, you have to respect their rights, no matter what the reason was for bringing them into existence. But you don't have to respect animals' rights.
And why don't animals have rights?
I don't know. I haven't figured out the basis for the rights yet.
Well, it doesn't matter, because life on a factory farm is much worse than no life at all. It would be much better not to create billions of miserable lives.
Really? Why do you think it's worse than no life at all?
I could start describing the conditions on factory farms again, but I think you need to see it. Go look up some videos on factory farming, then I think you'll agree with me.
Okay, but this all assumes utilitarianism, doesn't it? I mean, you're assuming that the morally right action is just a matter of what produces the most expected pleasure or the least expected pain, where you weight each good or bad possible consequence by the probability that it will occur.
No, I'm not assuming utilitarianism. I thought you were assuming utilitarianism.
Me? How so?
You were making the argument that it's okay to buy products from an immoral industry, provided that doing so doesn't cause them to increase their immoral actions. That's something a utilitarian might say. That's not my view.
What would your view be?
My view would be that it's wrong to financially reward extremely immoral businesses, regardless of whether you're causing them to do it, or if they've already done it and you're paying them after the fact.
If it's not contributing to the amount of immoral behaviour, what's wrong with it?
Two things. One, you're rewarding wrongful behaviour, which is unjust. You're contributing to making it so that immorality pays.
But that's always true. A lot of immoral behaviour has been paying for a long time.
But from a moral point of view, you're responsible for your own role in the system. You're not necessarily obligated to fix the world's injustices, but you are obligated not to become a part of them. Second, whether or not immorality pays, you have a duty not to become party to a crime after the fact. You should not willingly make it the case that great wrongs are done for you.
I'm not sure it would be true that animals were tormented and killed, for me. After all, the people on the farms don't know anything about me in particular.
It's done for the meat consumers. You're a part of that class, so it's done in part for you, as well as the other meat consumers.
But if a wrong is going to be committed regardless of what we do, shouldn't we make the most of it by taking whatever advantage can be gained from it?
I doubt you would think that in other contexts. Say you live in Nazi Germany. Someone offers you a job helping load Jews into gas chambers for execution. It pays a little more than your current job. If you turn down the job, they'll just get someone else to do it. Would you take the job?
No, but...
The wrong is going to be done anyway. Why not take personal advantage of it?
That's kind of messed up.
That's my point.
So you're assuming an anti-utilitarian ethics then?
No, I'm saying that meat eating is wrong either way. On any reasonable moral view, it is wrong to inflict severe pain and suffering on others without good reason. So, factory farming is wrong. If you're a utilitarian, you should give up meat because doing so reduces the expected number of animals suffering on factory farms. If you're not a utilitarian, you should give up meat for the additional reason that you don't want to be a party to serious immorality.
Okay, fine. But all this turns on the pain allegedly suffered by farm animals. How can we really be sure that non-human animals feel pain?
You can't be 100% certain of anything about the external world. I mean, I can't be 100% sure that you feel pain. Maybe you're just a mindless automaton. Does that mean I should feel free to torture you?
No, that won't be okay.
Which shows that I don't have to be 100% certain that I'm inflicting pain in order for my action to be wrong. If there's even a good chance that you can feel pain, I shouldn't torture you.
Okay, then why is there even a good chance that animals can feel pain?
1, they act like they feel pain. They sometimes scream, try to escape, and so on. They do this under the same conditions that would make you scream or try to escape. For example, if someone cut off one of your body parts. 2, animals have the same physiological structures that explain your capacity to feel pain. The same sort of pain sensors in the body connected up to the same brain areas. That's why no animal scientist seriously doubts that farm animals feel pain.
Alright, so they feel pain. But animals eat each other all the time, so why shouldn't we eat them?
Are you saying that anything done by an animal is morally permissible for you to do?
Well, no. If an animal killed a person, that wouldn't show that it was okay to kill people. It's just that the animals couldn't complain about being eaten by us, since they eat each other.
You know, humans sometimes kill other humans. Would you accept this reasoning? Humans can't complain about being killed since they sometimes kill each other?
Well, maybe the particular people who have committed a murder can't complain if we kill them. We can execute murderers. Of course, we can't just kill any human merely because some other humans have been murdered.
So, by similar logic, animals that have killed other animals may be killed in turn, like capital punishment for animals?
Sure.
But the chickens, pigs, and cows on the farms don't eat each other, and they don't kill other animals.
Well, chickens sometimes eat insects and worms.
Okay, chickens eat other species, so it's okay to kill chickens. But people also eat other species, so it's okay to kill people?
That's awful.
I'm just following the logic of your argument.
Fine. Now let's follow the logic of your argument. You're saying it's wrong to eat animals. Then it must also be wrong for animals to eat each other, right? Is it wrong for a lion to eat a gazelle?
I don't know. What do you think?
I say it's not wrong, because it's natural for animals to eat each other.
Do you think lions are moral agents?
What do you mean by moral agents?
Do they have free will? Are they able to regulate their behaviour according to moral principles?
No to both. Animals just act on instinct.
Then nothing is morally right or wrong for a lion.
You're saying morality only applies to things with free will that can regulate their behaviour morally.
Don't you agree? You don't blame a baby for crying on an airplane, or a hurricane for destroying a city, or a lion for killing a gazelle, because none of them are capable of regulating their behaviour morally.
But then how can similar actions be wrong for us?
We have free will, and are able to regulate our behaviour according to moral principles.
That's so unfair. Lions get to do whatever they want, but we have to restrain ourselves.
That's the nature of morality.
Okay, lions can't constrain themselves. But do you think we should stop lions from killing gazelles?
If you can figure out a way of doing that without killing all the lions and disrupting the ecology, then we should consider it. In the meanwhile, though, I know a way that we could prevent ourselves from slaughtering animals without us dying. We could just eat vegetables.
But if animals can't have moral obligations, then doesn't that mean that they can't have moral rights either? I've heard from conservative moralists that rights imply obligations.
My case for vegetarianism didn't rely on any claims about rights. Remember that it was all compatible with utilitarianism. I'm only assuming that you shouldn't inflict enormous pain and suffering for minor reasons.
Let me rephrase. If it's impossible for some creatures to do wrong, then it's also impossible for anyone to do wrong to that creature.
Why do you think that?
Morality only protects those who can understand morality.
Again, why do you think that?
It sounded good when I said it.
Let me give you a couple of examples. You're saying morality only protects those who can understand morality. Babies can't understand morality. It follows that, on your view, morality doesn't protect babies. So it would be alright to torture them.
That's terrible.
Another example. Say you have an adult human who can't understand morality, like a person living with mental disabilities. Can we torture them?
No.
Or a psychopath. Again, they can't understand morality. Can we torture them?
Well, if they commit crimes, we should put them in jail.
Don't change the subject. I'm not asking about jail. I'm asking about torture, and I'm not asking if you can do it because they committed a crime. I'm asking if you can do it simply because they can't understand morality.
Well, no, that would be wrong.
So it's not true that morality only protects those who can understand morality. Morality protects infants, people living with mental disabilities, and psychopaths from gratuitous infliction of pain and suffering. So why not animals?
Maybe morality is the result of a social contract, so it only protects those who are members of our society. People living with a mental disability, a baby, or a psychopath, they're all members of our society, despite their limited understanding.
So, if you meet a person from another society, you can torture and kill them?
No, because they could join our society.
What if they can't because our society has rules that permanently exclude them? Then we can torture them?
No, because they could be members of our society if we were to change our practices.
Okay, so, a person living with a mental disability from another society is protected because our society could adopt that person as a member?
I guess so.
Then why wouldn't animals also be protected? Because our society could adopt them as members.
Animals are never true members of society, not even when we treat them as if they were.
Why not?
Well, they never really reciprocate. They don't understand the social rules, they don't engage in public deliberation, things like that.
Okay, but the same is true of people living with severe mental disabilities, so we could torture them, right?
No, but eating meat is natural. People have done it for all of history. We have teeth adapted for chewing meat, see? But eating people living with mental disabilities is just not natural.
So you're a big fan of naturalness, are you?
Sure, sometimes. Sometimes I like to follow nature.
Those hot dogs that you enjoy, do you know how many unnatural ingredients they stick in those things?
So maybe I should give up the hot dogs. But other meat products are more natural.
What do you mean by natural?
You know, meat eating follows our instincts. We evolved to do it. It's what our ancestors have always done.
Our ancestors didn't run factory farms.
Yeah, but they ate meat, and we need factory farms today in order to provide for the amount of meat we want to eat at a reasonable price.
Our ancestors also did other things that I bet you wouldn't approve of. Slavery, wars of conquest, oppression of women, torture.
Okay, scratch the point about our ancestors, but it's still natural because it follows our instincts and we evolved to do it.
You think that everything that's natural is good?
Well, not necessarily good per se.
But at least okay. Is everything that's natural something that's okay?
Sure.
You know, cancer is natural. So are earthquakes, hurricanes.
Okay, those things are bad, but I'm just talking about behaviour. Behaviours that are natural are okay.
I think war is natural too.
How could that be natural?
Well, people have been doing it for all of human history. That's some evidence that it's natural for humans, isn't it? Just as eating meat is natural for us. Primitive tribes make war even more often than we do. There seems to be some sort of human instinct to conquer and dominate other people.
I don't see how an instinct for war could evolve. Wars are so destructive.
According to one theory, men in primitive tribes would attack a neighboring tribe to kill the neighboring tribe's men and kidnap and rape its women. In our evolutionary past, the men who succeeded in doing this sort of thing tended to leave behind more offspring than peaceful men who stayed at home. They passed on their genes for aggressive behavior. That's how the instinct for war evolved.
I don't know that I want to buy into all that. That's a very cynical and nasty theory.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. But at least it's a possible explanation of war, right?
I guess it's possible.
So, here's my question. Would you say that if that theory is correct, then war is good?
I'm pretty sure that war is bad.
But if the theory I described is correct, then war is natural, so it would have to be good, right?
Well, I guess not everything natural is necessarily good, but I've also heard that God gave humans souls, and he didn't give souls to animals.
What's a soul?
I'm not sure exactly. It's some immaterial component of a person that goes to heaven after you die.
And how do we know that there are any such things?
Perhaps because we have conscious experiences. The existence of a soul explains how inanimate matter differs from conscious beings. There's a certain way that it feels to be us, but there's nothing that it feels like to be a hunk of matter.
In that case, I think animals have souls too. They have experiences. There's something that it feels like to be a cow.
But they can't reason using abstract concepts. Also, they don't go to heaven or hell when they die, according to traditional religions.
So their souls are non-rational and mortal.
Right, only humans have rational, immortal souls.
I'm not seeing how this makes it okay to torture and kill animals for trivial reasons. If anything, now it sounds like it's even worse to kill an animal than a human. At least the human gets an afterlife. The animal is just gone forever.
But the Bible says that God granted us dominion over the earth and all its creatures.
Did he give us the earth and its creatures to torment, or to watch over as responsible stewards?
Well, responsible steward sounds more like the sort of thing God would expect of us.
Is there a Bible verse that says that torturing animals for minor reasons is okay?
No, but I can't find any verse that says it's not okay.
It also doesn't say that insider trading is wrong.
What does that have to do with this?
My point is that the Bible isn't an exhaustive list of everything that's right and wrong. We also have to exercise our conscience.
Okay, I'm not defending factory farming. The point about the soul was just to explain why we have rights and animals don't, in response to the extreme animal rights advocates.
I don't think it even explains that. It's at least possible that we don't really have immortal souls, right?
I guess it's possible.
Okay, if it turns out that we don't have immortal souls, will we then have no rights?
No.
So it looks like the reason you believe we have rights is not really that we have immortal souls.
Okay, look, I haven't figured out why you're wrong yet, but I'll try again next week.
Agreed. Same time and place?
Actually, there's a new Chinese restaurant I'd like to try. It's supposed to have a great Kung Pao chicken.
No.
Come on, you don't have to eat the chicken. They have vegetarian dishes too.
I'm not going there to watch you eat meat.
Why not?
Have you forgotten the conversation we just had?
No, I know you're against eating meat. I just didn't realise you had such a problem with other people eating meat. That's so judgy.
You must not have understood my position. I haven't just been reporting personal preferences. I'm not saying I personally prefer not to eat meat. I'm saying it's morally wrong. That's what all the arguments have been about. That means it's just as wrong for you to do it.
I understand that that's your opinion, but what gives you the right to judge me?
Are you judging me for judging you?
Oh, this feels like one of those self-referential paradoxes. If it's wrong to judge people, then it's wrong to judge that it's wrong to judge people.
Look, it doesn't require any special rights to make a moral evaluation. If you see someone do something and you have enough evidence that it was wrong, then you can and should draw the conclusion that they acted wrongly. You don't need to be some special authority figure with special rights or anything. If you saw me beat up a child, you would rightly conclude that I was behaving badly. You wouldn't refuse to draw any conclusions just to avoid being judgy.
Fine, I'll meet you here again so I won't offend your delicate sensibilities. But I still want you to know that I'm feeling pretty judged here.